Jurgens. I'm the Business Impact Manager at 90, and what that really means, similar to Kelly, is I'm working on business goals across programs, also working on developing tools, processes, kind of helping to not recreate the wheel across clients and helping to share learnings. So I went to the Marketing Sherpa Optimization Summit in May this year. As I'm sitting here listening to everybody's presentation, I feel like people were really kind of teeing it up for me, so thanks. We keep hearing over and over, give the customer what they want, tell them what they want to know. How do we really know what they want to know? We can definitely sit in a room and hypothesize and throw ideas up on the board and pick the one that everybody's voting on. But it's really testing that's going to tell you the truth. So that's what this summit went through. So again, why did we go? 90octane is really focused on conversions, as I'm sure you all know. A Digital Marketing Outlook report in 2013 said that 84% of the marketing budgets are either going to stay the same or decrease. So at the same time, we know that the customer is expecting a lot more out of us. Content, you've heard a lot about tonight. More and more tactics are being introduced into the mix. And at the same time, a lot more appetite to measure, really tie back to ROI. For us, that really means that we're expected to do a lot more with the same or less. Really here, I think that says that testing is one of those ideas. We're looking for things that kind of are going to move the needle, and testing can really step in here. We've used testing for a long time at 90, and I think this conference just kind of rejuvenated it and made us think about how we can put it into more of our programs. I definitely will acknowledge any new idea comes with some resistance. I've heard a lot about testing, why we don't want to do it, and I'm kind of here to share takeaways in terms of myths that I hear a lot about testing and why they're not so relevant in this space. This is the one I hear time and time again. I don't have the time, I don't have the budget. Again, we all know that we're very taxed. Our teams are getting smaller, our budgets are staying the same. And the conference had example after example after example of how you can really do more with less, and how small changes can have a really big impact. So I'll share a couple of those examples with you guys today. Another thing I hear a lot is that once I start testing, it's never going to end. There's an unlimited amount of things I can test. And yes, that is true to an extent, but it's really not about how many tests you're running, it's why you're running it. So one test can have a really big impact and teach you a lot about that customer that you're trying to kind of solve what they're looking for. Lastly is that idea that I don't need to test. I'm already following all the best practices, my results are fine, I'm kind of good to go. And you'll definitely hear that 90 is always leading with best practices, and it is really important. But it's going beyond best practices and making sure that we're looking at that full picture. So my first example, small changes can have a big impact. This is another one from SAP. I'm starting to see themes of companies that are at all these conferences. In this one, super small change. They've got the exact same layout, they've got the exact same content. All they did was take kind of that controlled, iconic imagery and switch it out for more photography. Took a designer, very little time. I won't say how much because I'm sure it takes longer than I think it takes. But a relatively small change, I think we can all agree, led to a 46% increase in those form submissions. So don't need a ton of time, don't need a ton of budget, pretty small change, big impact. So it's not what, but why. In this example, we've got a mortgage company who has a lot of value propositions. I'm sure a lot of companies out there, you've got a ton of things that make you unique, make you great. And here I can kind of, as I'm listening to this case study, picture people in a room and they're going, no, this is what's great, no, this is what's great. And so testing is a great way to solve that. One example was a payment option, and the other example was customer service. So again, kind of split audience internally in terms of what was really resonating with the customer. So they went out with both messages. Again, pretty huge indicator. It wasn't a 5% change. It was 241% more clicks on that payment options than the customer service. So now you've kind of answered your own question through that one test. And it didn't take 100 hours and 100 different tests. It was one test, and you learned a huge, huge piece of information about your customer. Another thing I hear a lot about testing when you run a test is either the test won or a test lost. I definitely kind of understand why people are saying that, but it's really not the right vernacular to be using because, again, it's about what you're learning. So you may implement 5, 6 tests, and they all may not outperform what we're going to kind of call your control, what you had implemented to begin with. And that's okay, as long as you take it to the next step and understand why the test or the control that you had in place performed better than what you tried to test against. So again, it doesn't really matter what outperformed what, as long as you're kind of cataloging those learnings and using them to move forward in your marketing programs. All right, quiz time to make sure everybody's awake. So looking at these called control, treatment, who thinks that the control performed better? Okay, who thinks the treatment performed better? We got one lone guy. He knows where I'm going, too. You've seen it, though. It's cheating. 220% better on the treatment. This is an alcohol rehab facility who, again, kind of went out with, this is Marketing Sherpa, so Mech Labs as well. They do a lot in terms of conversion best practices. So this is them kind of preaching against their best practices, but the control, you've got the form high, it's above the fold, it's really apparent right there that you're asking for people to give them information. But what they were finding was that results weren't quite where they wanted them to be. So someone over there managed to get this treatment implemented, probably was called a crazy idea, and what they did was really move all the content into a one-column form and put the form very low, kind of down at the bottom. Again, would have been called a totally crazy idea, but once implemented, saw just a huge, huge increase in the conversion. So I think that just points to really understanding what your customer wanted. This was a alcohol rehab. You think it's a lot of friends and family who are looking to support somebody. They wanted a lot of information up front. They had a lot to choose from and really wanted a ton of information prior to giving away information. Another really important example of looking at the full picture is taking a step back and seeing how that test really impacts everything around you. So this example, that full picture is really going to be the funnel. This test was ran, they had a goal, they were trying to increase the button clicks that were happening on a landing page. They knew they had about 200,000 monthly visitors coming to that page. To decrease the risk a little bit, they decided to use 50% of that page traffic, A/B tested it, 50-50 split it. And the test was these two pieces of button copy. So we've got Get Started Today and Get Instant Access Now. They ran the test and found that the results showed a 20% increase in clicks over that control. So the Get Instant Access Now brought the click-through rate on the landing page from 6% up to 7.2%, which is great, right? So you finally got everybody on board with testing, you're finding results, you're learning about your customer. This test won, let's implement it. And this is really kind of that cautionary tale to take a step back and look at how everything else impacts the whole funnel. So in this particular example, when they did do that, they found that the traffic coming from that Get Instant Access Now button was actually abandoning the cart at a 50% higher rate. So what that means when you kind of look at the whole example all the way through to revenue, just for math, using a $500 average sale, had they gone ahead and implemented what they thought was the successful test, it would have impacted monthly revenue by $72,000 a month. So in summary, definitely testing is just, I think, a foolproof way to learn a ton about your customers. It doesn't take a ton of time. It doesn't take a ton of money. It's really about using that why and stretching it across everything you're learning in your marketing programs. And it's definitely a great way to show your boss that you can do more with less.